Hey everyone, welcome to the Naked Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Sage Hobbs, author and creator of Naked Communication, and I'm so psyched you're here. This show is all about taking charge of your life in new and inspired ways to create a life you deeply love. It's about being more you in all areas of your life, more courageous, more free, more alive, more naked. I'll be sharing stories and advice from amazing people around the world who are up to incredible things on how they are successfully breaking free from fear and old patterns in order to create incredible relationships and impactful lives so that you can do the same. This is the place to be inspired to live a courageous and naked life. Let's do this. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Naked Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Sage Hobbs, and this is season 2. First off, thank you so much for listening. I hope you get the inspiration, the clarity, motivation, laugh, cry, whatever it is that you came for when you tune in today. It is really great to be back with you all. I took a break in order to get excited for season 2 and line up some amazing guests and integrate my kids back into school and my husband back into school because he's a teacher. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. If you love the show and you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do that over on iTunes or wherever you listen. And if you're a huge fan, I'd really appreciate if you took a moment and wrote a quick review. That's easiest done from your cell phone, actually, in iTunes. Also, if you're not hanging out with me in your inbox and you want more inside stories, inspiration delivered right into your inbox, I email folks maybe 2 to 4 times a month at the most. You can do that over on my website at sagebhobbs.com. That's also where you can listen to other episodes and check out the show notes, which has all of the resources that we talk about in each show. So when we reference a book or a speaker or a different episode, it's all over there on the show notes. You can also learn about my book, grab a copy if you want, or how to work with me. I take a select number of individual clients and sometimes run groups. Best way to reach me with any of your questions or your feedback is to contact me through my website or message me on Instagram. That actually works pretty well for me. I'm not a huge social media person, but I do play on Instagram and share my stories with you there, my humor and other things that are inspiring me. And I love to get messages from you about what you'd like to hear on the show, what's coming up for you from listening, anything like that. So let's dive in. Solo shows are me doing some storytelling about what I'm experiencing in my own attempt to live a naked life. And I've really found storytelling to be the best way to connect with people and to learn from each other and just to be real. So there's a reason why storytelling has been passed on traditions and over time in how we share and express our own experiences of the world. And I was recently at an event just this last weekend, which I'm going to share more with you about. And there were many incredible speakers there, teachers and leaders in lots of different areas of activism and social justice and conscious capitalism. And the ones who spoke and really wove in their personal stories were the ones that landed so deeply in all of our hearts and really expanded the way we thought. So I just like to use the solo shows like us hanging out, having lunch, where I share with you what I'm thinking about, what I'm learning, what I'm struggling with right alongside you, so we can do this thing together and really lean into how we can make an impact and show up more fully in our own lives. So that's what we do on the solo shows. That's what this is about, like hanging out and getting real. Today, I'm going to get into the challenge that happens in transitions from my point of view and what I've observed with clients and people I work with. New experiences that stretch us, even when they're a bit out of our comfort zone. I've had several of those lately. I'm going to talk about one of them in particular. And igniting your impact, a new direction for my work and for the show, and maybe for you as well. So those are the 3 things I'm going to riff on today. Like I said, I really believe that there's some reason you're tuning in and that something that we talk about today will land with you, whatever it is. You may not even know you came for it. It might be inspiration. It might be a aha. It might be whatever you needed to get activated or motivated into action. It might be something that makes you laugh or that makes you cry or makes you say, oh yeah, me too. I get that. So listen for whatever might show up for you. And thank you for listening. Getting back into the swing of things with school is hard in our house. And I feel like I know this, and yet every year somehow I feel surprised by it. When you just keep learning a lesson again and again because you forget. I don't know what that's about, but that seems to be the pattern of life. If you listen to episode 41, the last episode that I did several weeks ago to close out season 1, you know that we had a particularly special summer as a family. We went on a huge adventure out of the country for 6 weeks. And I also took my kids solo to the beach for a week. We also went to these gorgeous hot springs and visited friends and rode horses. We had a big, epic, special summer. And I learned a ton from it. My kids stretched and grew immensely. We came together as a family in really beautiful ways. All of that I talk about in episode 41 and some universal lessons from that experience. But the flip side of that experience was the transition back to school. So even if we hadn't had this huge summer, because all of our summers aren't like this one was, the transition is just hard for us. So what that looked like was me really struggling to reestablish a work-life routine. It looked like separating from my youngest child. My daughter is 5 and she started kindergarten this year. She was super ready and really excited to join her big brother in school. He's in 4th grade. So he's been there. This is his 5th year in the building and this is her first. And she was psyched to join him. But that looked like me saying goodbye to my baby of the family. Not really goodbye, but those of you who have kids might know what I mean. It's just an emancipation point in time where she was stepping out on her own and how I adjusted to that. And then supporting my husband and going back to work because he's a high school teacher and the start of the year for him is also exhausting to reacclimate. And he runs this amazing transition program for incoming freshmen and he trains juniors and seniors to lead that peer-to-peer experience. And so he is really in it at the start of the year, which means more of a load at home on me. After a summer together, being parents really full-time together, that transition back to us, me putting my foot back on the gas with my work more and him full throttle right into it out the gate back with school. It's an adjustment for us. And then there's the social calendar and the activities. And we try to minimize our children's activities so that we're not running around like crazy in the what I consider sort of weird new expectations of middle-class families in the United States to have their kids do a million things. We try to be really mindful about that. But nonetheless, with reintegrating back to school comes certain after-school activities and social desires of my kids who are individuals and want to connect with their friends. And since I always talk about relationships and the value of relationships, it wouldn't be fair for me to value my own relationships, but not support them in theirs. So getting back into the routine of school and work was hard for us. There was some stress, there was some tears. It was actually pretty smooth considering that I know that it's a struggle for everyone. And what I forget every year is that I'm a part of that everyone as well. And that it really takes me some time to reground and figure out how to juggle all the moving pieces. It's like I focus on the 3 of them. And all of a sudden, it's really, I have to look at my business and where it's going in the podcast and events that I attend and places that I speak and all of that. And really finding I don't even want to call it balance because I kind of think balance is a myth. But managing the juggle is what I really think of it as, with as much grace and compassion as possible. So for those of you who love to listen to the show and there was a break between seasons, I super appreciate you giving us that pause. That is what I will probably always do and what I encourage you to do, which is to create pause in your life where you need to. And if there's a transitional point in the rhythm of your year where you can pull off the gas a little bit and give yourself some grace and some space, then I encourage you to do that. And I know that that looks different in a traditional 9-to-5 environment, and it might look different if you don't have children. It looks different for each of us, and yet all of us have rhythms to our seasons. And there are times when we need to just give ourselves a little more space and grace. Maybe it's the holidays for you. Maybe you need some of that in the summertime to unwind, whatever that looks like for you. But I just want to be real. This is Naked Conversations, everybody. So I really want to own that I too am in this experience with you, and that there are times when I am up against juggling and struggling with managing all the moving parts of my life and the big, impactful, rich, loving, deep relationship, playful, joyous, self-expressed experience that I want to have on the planet. So how the heck did I get myself back into a good space? I mean, that might be for another conversation, but I really, really had to be intentional about some morning rituals for myself. So what that looks like is my husband gets up before me. He hops in the shower about 6:15, and I get up, and from about 6:15 to 6:45 on a good day, a half an hour, sometimes it's only 5 minutes or 15, depending on when the kids get up, I try to grab anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes to myself where I do a series of various rituals, I guess would be a good way to say it, to really create a more peaceful and intentional day for myself. I talk fast. I think fast. I do most things fast. And I do a lot of things like many of you. And I have to really carve out the time to slow down, to reflect, to figure out what the top 3 things are I need to do that day, to write down my gratitude practice, to move my body just a little bit, whether it be some yoga or some little hand weights. And when I say little, I mean like 2 to 5 pounds, literally. I have several things that I do, and I just do them for about, like I said, 5 to 30 minutes to start my day off with a sense of intentionality and attention and breath. Otherwise, I jump out of bed and I hit the ground running, and it really doesn't work for me, and it really doesn't work for the people in my life, my family members first and foremost, and then even my clients. I really do better if I have taken the time to ground myself and breathe and set an intention and some gratitude for my day. So that is how I got myself back into the rhythm of school and work and all of the things, was to commit myself, I guess, truly commit myself to spending that time in the morning. So then fast forward, this idea of doing hard things, or I don't even know if I want to call them hard, stretching ourselves out of our comfort zones or just into something new and exciting, something expansive, something that helps us step into a new version of ourselves or a bigger commitment of who we are, whatever that looks like for you. And it can look like a lot of different things. For me, the one that I'm going to share with you now, and there have been, like I said, several recently, I've been stepping out and getting uncomfortable, but this one was extraordinary and I didn't know what to expect. It was a wilderness walk, and I wasn't sure how I felt about this. But you know, I'm all about beauty and power of relationships and human connection. So a woman reached out to me. It was actually through Facebook. We were in a group together of business women in Colorado, female Colorado entrepreneurs. And she is local. She lives near where I live. And she was putting together this extraordinary event called the Wilderness Walk. And she was doing it through a nonprofit that she started called the Global Healing Collective. And I can put a link to this in the show notes. And I was intrigued. Yeah, I was really intrigued by what she was creating and what it takes to create something like that, bringing together speakers from all over the country and filling seats and a commitment to get people together who want to have a positive impact in the world. So I said, yeah, let's go for lunch. I'd love to hear more about it. So she and I went out for lunch, and immediately her energy was really contagious. She was truly collaborative, truly wanted to share in the community building experience of doing good work in the world. And I have found that sometimes in the entrepreneurial space or the online space, there's an individualistic idea. It can be a lonely endeavor. People really want to promote themselves. And, you know, there's a space for that in business, but it's really not works best for me or where my heart is. So when I meet someone who really wants to collaborate and build something in community, I was intrigued. So I decided to attend her event and to tell people about it and invite people to come and to donate several copies of my book to attendees. And it was started and kicked off on the Friday before the main event with what's called a wilderness walk. She's a trained therapist, and part of her business has been to take people on these wilderness walk experiences, which are spiritual journeys of self-discovery outside in nature. So look, I love nature. It's the closest that I've ever felt to spirit or God, whatever you call divinity in your life, if you call it anything at all. For me, that's always felt most near to me when I've been in the mountains or at the ocean or by moving water, somewhere really where I feel the magnitude of life bigger than myself, and that is in nature. So I was down for the adventure, right? Mountains, I'm cool. Strangers, I'm good. There were about 70 of us probably, and I knew only 2 other women there. Silence and some meditative walking, fine. I can do all of that. Where it was a stretch for me was this shaman and medicine wheel part, where we were going to be led by some folks who had trained in indigenous rituals and belief systems. And I think it was a stretch for me on a multitude of levels. We can get into this in another episode when hopefully I have some people on the show that I think can speak to this. But I always get really aware of cultural appropriation and not wanting to sort of steal the traditions and rituals and sacredness of other cultures that are not my own. I want to be respectful of that. And also I live in Boulder, Colorado, and there's a lot of what people call woo-woo, which I don't think all woo-woo is bad. I love the heart-centered spiritual component of some of that, but I don't love some of it. I don't love some of it that feels superficial or, like I said, sort of taking off from other people's deep valued traditions. So I was sensitive to this. I was like, what's this going to be like? But open, because I'm open to new experiences, and I wanted to trust and support and collaborate with this lovely woman. And I love to be outside. And I was ready, like I said, coming off of the heels of this transitional period in my life in the school year and getting back into things, to really be inspired and ignited into deeper action and activation for the work I'm doing in the world. So it turned out to be truly, truly extraordinary, really beautiful. And I felt like I just surrendered into the experience. And this is something I've said to people often when working with them or with friends. And I say it to myself. And this is really what I said to myself, which is it can often be easier to observe and criticize and critique. It can be easier to observe than to truly engage and participate. And engaging and participating 99% of the time has a deeper, more profound impact on how we experience our lives. So I surrendered into this experience and sort of let myself be led by these trained shamans or mystics or healers, however they refer to themselves. Some of them refer to themselves differently than others. And I felt so much deep peace, connection to myself, connection to something greater than myself. I felt my dad with me, and my dad has been dead for 7 years now, which is hard to believe. I felt some deep clarity come through me around what my real deeper purpose is on the planet and the work that I do and really how I want to express that. I felt a sense of groundedness and calmness and love and hope and possibility. It was really, really lovely and super important for me. And I'm glad I trusted myself to just participate, to surrender into the silence, into the prayer, into the receiving, into the connecting. So I guess the piece there for you is, are there times when you're so up in your head, when you're judging or questioning or doubting something so much that you miss out on the opportunity to actually have the experience, to actually surrender into a new learning or a new sense of clarity or connection? I think it happens to us all the time, where our minds just go into the habitual pattern of judgment, criticism, questioning, doubting, skepticism, whatever it looks like. And what would it be like if instead of observing and critiquing, we participated and engaged? Like, what would be possible from shifting how we place our attention? So the newsletter that I sent out to those who were on my list, who get some musings and such from me a few times every month, was basically something like, 75 strangers, 8 shamans, and miles in the woods. What did I learn from that? And it was multifold. It was, again, the reminder to surrender and allow myself to have new experiences. It was that at 41, I am very much on a journey to understand spirituality more and how I connect to it. And I'm open to opportunities to explore that further. It was finding peace and tranquility amidst transition and striving. It was many, many things. So what's possible for you if you silence that automatic behavior and instead participate and engage more? So the last thing I want to share with you today is about the weekend itself, WalkFest 2018. I go on and on about this. Earlier, it was probably about this time last year, I shared about an experience I had at Emerging Women Live conference, and I can link to that podcast in the show notes. there is something really powerful about putting yourself in a community of people who want to do good in the world, who want to make a positive impact, if that is your jam. And if you're listening, I know it is, because you wouldn't be listening to me and tuning into Naked Conversations if there wasn't some part of you that really wanted a deeper meaning in your life, a sense of contribution, connection, love, affinity, self-expression. So I have found it to be an extraordinarily valuable thing to put myself in those communities. And whatever that looks like for you, not everybody's going to go to leadership conferences or personal development courses. It can look differently to different people. It could be your spiritual community. It could be a women's circle. Whatever it is, it could be intentional time with girlfriends in your life. Surrounding ourselves with people who inspire us is massively influential to how we live our life. So I've been clear since I was a child that I wanted to somehow make a contribution in the world. It has been a core value of mine, and it's not an accident. My parents definitely passed that along to me and exposed me to opportunities to do that since I was a kid. It's taken lots of directions. In middle school, I did dance-a-thons where I fundraised and danced all night with my friends to raise money for the Philadelphia Youth at Risk program. I used to attend fundraising events with my parents for the Hunger Project. Later in life, I worked at a residential treatment center for teenage boys who'd been in the justice system and in the juvenile system. Then I had 10 years as a school counselor after I got my master's in counseling, which most of you know that about my story if you've been listening in. I've attended philanthropic events. I continue to do that when I'm invited. I like to go. I like to hear what people are, where they're putting their purpose and attention and time and money in. So this has always just been kind of an integral part of how I want to show up in this lifetime. And it's not always easy to put our attention outside of our homes and outside of our own basic day-to-day things, paying the bills, doing the dishes, cooking the meals, going to work, doing the laundry. It's never ending, I'm telling you. That's how I feel in my house. But it's always been a commitment of mine and something that it's important to me. And it's just becoming clearer in my now, my 41 here, deeper and deeper how much I want to do this, live this way more intentionally, even though I'm in the season of life of raising kids and building a second career and, my marriage and all of the things. The work I currently do is really about this as well, which is like, how can we pop the cork, really unleash women's capacity and really help them see what they're actually capable of so that they can live and love and lead from that place. But this event this weekend at WalkFest with the Global Healing Collective really blew it up to a whole nother level, which is why I want to place myself in those environments. It really invited me to truly expand my impact and made me realize that there are a lot of places where I've been playing small and safe. It introduced me to this idea of how can I share this part of who I am and the work that I do with my clients more explicitly, with you, with the listeners more explicitly, that how can I tie my work more clearly, directly, and have it align with social impact and social justice and the things that I believe in, the things that I stand for. How can I marry those things into my work more openly and directly with you all and the people I work with directly? So people like Seane Corn, who created Off the Mat into the World, which is really about yoga as a form of activism. And she does incredible trainings around that. She spoke, she blew my mind. She had me sobbing. I'm not kidding, sobbing, probably a bit of ugly snot crying of how much I want to deepen my own understanding around all of the isms around white supremacy and oppression and racism and sexism and homophobia and classism and able-bodyism and all of that. She really woke me up again to a whole deeper level of where I want to go with that exploration. And we had Raj Sisodia, who created Conscious Capitalism and talked about growing up in India and sort of accidentally finding a career in business and marketing and realizing that he was never proud of that at all, that he saw this horrible pattern of preying on people's weaknesses and pain in order to sell things. And he turned all of that on its head and really started to explore, how could capitalism be a force for good? How could corporations be socially responsible? Which corporations are already functioning from that place? How can business, which drives so much internationally, actually participate in transformation on the planet? It was amazing. And Cynthia Kersey of the Unstoppable Foundation, and looking at a problem that seemed way beyond the scope of what she could take on in terms of having children in Africa access education and clean water and ability to provide their own livelihood. There were so many people whom I got to hear speak and also meet personally and talk with personally, and break bread with and share a meal with, that really, really were placed in my path, I think, to continuously show me how I want to show up and how I want to share with all of you. And some of these folks are going to come on the show this season. I'm so excited for you to hear their stories and get to know them more. I mean, just extraordinary singers and artists and activists and nonprofit leaders and business leaders. So what I was really left was that we are whole people. Our work isn't fully separate from our being mothers or sisters or lovers or artists or whatever roles you play. We are whole people. And I'm really exploring what my next evolution is and how I'm going to ignite my impact more deeply, how it will inform my work and my life more fully. And that's what I want to invite you to ask yourself if you're listening. I want you to ask yourself some of these same questions. What makes you come alive? That's my favorite part of the work I do, is this experience of watching people sort of wake up to themselves again or more than they ever have before. How can you come more alive? What makes you come more alive, and how can you put more attention and energy towards that? How can you lean into making a difference in your family or your community or even the world? What would that look like for you? What are the things that light you up? Is it animal rights? Is it climate? Is it education? Is it feminism? I don't know what it is for you. Is it literacy? I don't know. But what can you sort of lean into or explore more inside of your own community? What can you do as a family? What can you do as an individual? What can you do as an organization or a company that makes you feel more alive and like the role you're playing on this planet has the meaning you want it to have? So 2 ways that I know I'm going to begin to up-level myself here are by sharing stories of women who are doing just that, who are really leaning into the impact they can make. And these women are you and me. They're not from some other planet. Many of them are mothers. They've had different careers. They've had different challenges and hardships, right? But they are leaning in and moving towards how they want to courageously and nakedly use their lives to make a positive impact, and all of the challenges and rewards that that brings. Also, I'm going to work on really getting the show to more listeners. Listening is free, no matter where people live in the world, if they have access to the internet, and most places do now, not all, but there's incredible movements to get access to the internet, even in some of the most impoverished parts of the world. Obviously, that's a whole nother conversation. But listening is free, and I want these conversations to ignite and inspire people all over the world. So I'm going to put some attention on how to get this show into more people's earbuds. And you can help with that. Share it with your friends, tell people on your social media networks, whatever ways that you share things that excite you. If you've listened this long into the show, I know that you must be enjoying something. So I'd love if you'd help us get this out there, and we can really ignite more people to lean into what they're capable of and make the difference that they really want to make with their time on the planet. So that's episode 42, kicking off the second season. Like I said, some extraordinary guests are coming your way. Make sure you've subscribed on iTunes or wherever you listen if you want to make sure not to miss an episode. Or if you're on my newsletter list, I always send out when a new episode goes live, usually with some anecdote or inspiration or story along with it. So that's over at sagebhubs.com. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, for doing what you can to live a naked life, whatever that looks like for you. And until next time, go love, lead, and live with your full naked heart. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Naked Conversations. Yay! It really means the world to me every time you show up. And if you want to know more about how to work with me personally and my coaching, you can check that out over at sagebhubs.com. You can also get some great free resources over there about how to make powerful requests, and many blog posts full of resources for living a naked life, as well as grab a copy of my book, Naked Communication: Courageously Create the Relationships You Really Want. Thanks again. See you next time.